In the main event, Alexa Grasso gets the unanimous decision nod over Viviane Araujo. I think it's how you say it, Araujo. At UFC Vegas 62. BC, first question on this. Were you impressed with her performance is part one. Part two, I know she had some other comments about it. We'll talk about that in a second. Do you think the UFC will offer her a title shot based on the record she has, of course, previous to this, and then based on this win?
Look, this was a solid win by Alexa Grasso, and this played into kind of what I said ahead of time, handicapping it, that she's coming on. She's progressing at a fast rate. She's either adding or rounding out her skills at a fairly rapid level. Now 4-0 in this new division that, of course, we had questions about when her body forced her out of 115. Well, she's answering those questions. Was it spectacular? Was it kick your TV screen in this 5-round main event opportunity? No. Not all wins have to be, but in using your question of, is this enough? Should this be enough to launch now to the title level? I think she's very close. I do think it's dependent upon that Katlyn Chookagian, Manon Fiorot fight that, what, is this Saturday, Luke? Abu Dhabi, is that true?
Yes, correct. It should open the main card, but I'll double check.
Because here's the deal. Is the UFC going to go back to the well and put Chookagian in a title shot if they don't have to? I don't believe they will, even though they re-signed her. She's on another win streak. Look, she's as tough as it gets in this division, short of the title level. But I like to reserve space here, potentially, that if Fiorot wins, and if she's able to do it in a dominant or stoppage manner, the UFC would have an interesting debate. Look, Alexa Grasso coming from Mexico, I think is going to help her when it comes to who can we use? Who do we want to use as the B-side here to go up against Valentina? But let's give Manon Fiorot a shot now that the French doors are open. The UFC just did a show there. You know they want to do a big pay-per-view there. You know the idea long-term of like Francis and Cyril rematching under the Eiffel Tower with maybe Manon Fiorot in the co-main event for the title. Look, all that stuff kind of makes sense. I say we reserve judgment until then, but did Alexa Grasso do anything in this victory negatively or to set her back? No. A solid yet unspectacular performance across the board, Luke. Am I hitting on any of the notes that you believe in deep in your heart?
I think that's right. I mean, if you're looking at Manon Fiorot, which we'll talk about here, she is obviously undefeated in the UFC. She has a total of 10 pro fights. And in coming to the UFC, she has beaten Victoria Leonardo, who I'm not even sure is on the roster anymore, Tabitha Ricci, which is pretty good, Maria Bueno Silva, and then more recently Jennifer Maia. She decisioned the last two. Those are pretty good wins. So if she beats Katlyn Chookagian, you know, you could see a case where you beat two former title contenders back-to-back in Maia and Chookagian. She might get one. For me, with Grasso in this performance, we never said it on Friday, and it didn't really occur to me in the same way that it did after the fight was over, which is, dude, Araujo is hard to look good against. There are certain fighters out there where, yes, if you get a very preeminent talent and they're way better than the rest of the division, then they can beat fighters like Araujo and still look spectacular. But you can still get very, very good fighters up against her, and it's not only difficult to win, it's just difficult to win in a very convincing way because it's deceiving, right? We talked about it. She takes damage. She's very physically strong. She kind of punches from a lot of different angles. She's constantly putting pressure in a lot of different ways. She can mix up with the takedowns. She's physically strong. That's a hard person to like hurt physically. It's a hard person to get physically off of you. It's just very difficult to do anything that really demonstrably stands out in that way. So I think that for me, what I saw here, remember what I said on Friday, and I really believe it was true. We knew that Grasso had the skills to beat someone like Araujo, but what you have often seen is I've seen other fighters tear her up early and then not be able to sustain the effort. She sustained the effort, and in fact, the only 2 takedowns of the 10 attempted from Araujo were given up in the second. She couldn't get any in the third, fourth, and then the fifth she attempted 4. All 4 of them got stuffed. I mean, this was a very strong performance. I get the point that you're making, and I don't really disagree with it, that it wasn't spectacular. It wasn't super dominant. No, it wasn't those kinds of things.
Not every win will be or has to be, Luke, just to be fair. You know?
Yeah. I know what you're saying. I think you're couching it fine. The only piece of sort of the twisting caveat I would give here is that I just think this is an opponent it's tough if this is your tryout for a title shot. If styles make fights, right? We all agree with that. This is a tough opponent upon which to make your title shot tryout for the reasons articulated. Now, it also just so happens, BC, after the fight, that Grasso was asked by the media, hey, do you think you're ready for a shot against Valentina? She was like, I actually would like one more sort of 5-round main event. They are different to prepare for. You're in a different spot, different kinds of situations. I actually really like that from her. 29 years of age, looking for that. The question is what the UFC will do. Let's posit for a minute that Chookagian beats Manon Fiorot, so she's not even in the equation. Now, if you're the UFC, what do you do? Do you give her that extra main event, or do you rush her to a title shot?
Well, I think there's an interesting discussion that plays on the question you asked, but also the larger title picture. Do you get the feeling that Taila Santos is not getting that rematch? That's off the table, correct, against Shevchenko?
Seems very much off. There's just no discussion about it whatsoever.
And is that a backdoor revenge for in terms of her not paying her coaches like she should have, Luke? Is this karma catching up with her? No.
I mean, I don't really believe in that kind of nonsense.
All right. Let's shut that exit down. Let's stay on the highway here. So here's my question, Luke. You could argue that right now is as good a time as ever to start the 4 or 5 month build toward a trilogy between Amanda Nunes and Shevchenko. Am I incorrect or correct here?
You could do that, yes.
Because my question to you is, who else for both? You know what I mean? There's no one else at the moment that's kicking the door in either division, where if you're going to do that, you might as well build to that now. And if you do that, it would make a lot of sense potentially here that Grasso could be facing the winner of next week's Chookagian Pharaoh fight, or to be fair, Taila Santos, if she doesn't get the immediate rematch and title shot, which it looks like she's not. What do you think about Grasso running into her? What do you think about the idea of exactly what Grasso was saying? You know, let's give her that one more chance to earn it. I think it's refreshing to hear that. I think she responded well to the 5-round challenge. She was in tears afterwards, talking about how hard she worked. She knows that it's constant leveling up. It's constant. Look, every time she adds another, wrinkle to her game or takes on another challenge, Grasso is passing these tests. But she might be predicting her own future in a way, because what are we waiting for on Nunes and Valentina? Like, seriously, why would you wait any longer? It's an intriguing fight. It matters historically. I think the time is now, Luke.
I don't really mind that idea. I think actually it's a pretty good idea, because quite candidly, you could give a title shot to either Grasso or, again, if Fiorot wins on Saturday, you could go either of those directions. But candidly speaking, I know the UFC doesn't want to, as a matchmaker, one of the things you have to be careful about is having viable contenders for someone eliminating each other before they get a chance to fight actually the champion, which the UFC may not want to do here, because the cupboard is so bare, as we've talked about. I think, again, as it stands today, the rankings are not updated. They will be later on this afternoon after the show. But as it stands, you've got, I think, Grasso sitting at number 5 or 6 in the division, meaning basically everyone inside the top 5 except Jessica Andrade has not had a title shot yet. And Andrade is certainly, an interesting name, but hasn't quite done enough yet in this division to warrant. Actually, I think she's back. Is she back down?
She's back at 115. Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah. So she's not even. She's still ranked in that space, but they'll update that accordingly. Anyway, you get the idea. So my point being is, if they went with the Shevchenko Amanda Nunes, it actually would be better, because one, that fight needs to happen and it'll be historically significant. That's one. Two, you get Grasso getting another 5-round main event. That would be kind of fun. And against Fiorot, it's a good opponent. And then you just get a little bit more clarity about who's actually deserving of a flyweight title shot. But BC, if you end up having Grasso versus Fiorot, let me pull up the rankings here very, very quickly so that we're all on the same page. I'm not just talking completely out of my ass in real time. Here's how it stands in that division right now. You do have Santos sitting at 2, but then it's Murphy, Andrade, Grasso at 5, Araujo at 6, Fiorot at 7, Katlyn Chookagian sitting at 1. Like, dude, you have to go literally to 5 and 7 to get a title shot. If somehow both of those are eliminated, right? Because one of them has to lose, so one gets a title shot, one has to be eliminated, and then that person loses. Dude, you're having to go down to number 9 or 10 in the division of Andre Arlie or Casey O'Neill. I think the UFC might be hesitant to make a Grasso versus Fiorot matchup for just that very reason.
No, those are very good points. I do want to also throw out there, though, to further cement my idea, though, Shevchenko finally looked human last fight against Taila Santos. And Nunes lost the title and was able to win it back and improve, and reprove her greatness. But it goes to show you that you wait much longer, history could change before you have a chance to put these two historical figures against one another. But Luke, I don't like to do this. I don't like to call you onto the carpet of pronunciations and find out firsthand whether your drapes match your own carpet there, Luke. But, you could just as easily say Santos instead of Santos, and Grasso instead of Grasso, and Araujo instead of Araujo. I mean, this is some Sage Chardé bullshit from you, and you don't typically pull that. So I'm a little bit disappointed in you this Monday morning, Luke. And I'm the guy who can't figure out if it's risen or rising, Luke, okay?
Listen, these are all very fair criticisms. Again, it's a common refrain you hear from me, and I know people are sick of hearing it, but it really is true. My sleep is a disaster, and I can't think for 5 minutes straight without some kind of, oh, look, a butterfly. I'm really just dying over here mentally from the inside out. So all those criticisms, absolutely fair, and I don't know what to say about it.
But you know what haters will say? Do you know what haters will say? And I'm not talking about BGL, but haters will say if one of these women were Colombian, we wouldn't have this issue. That's what they would say. Okay?
Listen,
right.
I would like to tell you that they're wrong. They're probably not wrong. I really am guilty as charged here this morning. All right. But
Luke, well, tell me this. Tell me this from your eyes. You're a keener eye. What did Alexa Grasso do in this fight that took her stock to another level that impressed you, that we are talking about setting the stage for a potential title opportunity?
Well, it was funny that Dominic Cruz took a moment to throw shade at MMA statistics, which I just have to tell you, I really find...
Hold on, I activated my Alexa. 1 second. Alexa, off. Sorry, it happened, Luke. It did. Grasso made it happen. It happened. Go ahead, Luke.
I was just going to say, which really blows my mind, because I just don't understand how you could have the role as a commentator and then have hostility towards statistics in MMA. It seems like one of your more valuable tools, or at least some kind of a valuable tool, not some kind of referendum or challenge to your authority. I'd never understand that. But okay, neither here nor there. The reason why I bring it up is because Richard Mann of Fight Metric, he puts out a column every week sort of detailing what the statistical picture looks like ahead of every weekend's UFC main event. And his assessment using the numbers from the past week were like right on the money. What stood out to me was that you had Grasso, who doesn't have lights out takedown defense, but over the course of a bout is very difficult to hold down for prolonged periods of time, which is true. She did have to give up a lot of time under control in the second round, but that is basically it. And so that was something that we knew was going to play a role. But the thing that I wanted to say that really stood out to me was something I alluded to earlier, BC, which was I knew that she had the skills, but did she have the discipline and, frankly, the IQ to make good choices over the course of 25 minutes? That is actually a much more difficult task than it looks like, especially against an opponent who is both durable and physical, yet hittable. It can be a little bit hard to do that. She had good decision-making for 25 minutes. She did not ever compromise herself by making poor decisions. She was never really out of position. And if she got put into a control spot, she found ways around it over time and then never really let her opponent get back there. She shut the door on her constantly, which against this kind of sort of tricky opponent is very, very difficult to do. So that's what stood out to me. Good decision-making around her existing abilities, incrementally better for sure, but applied very, very professionally, very diligently for an extended period of time. Hard to do that. She did it well.
Did you agree with the scoring in the end? I agree that she was the rightful winner. Wasn't there one or maybe even 2 4-rounds-to-1 cards out there?
The scores were Mike Bell had it 50-45, Sal D'Amato 49-46, and then Junichiro Kamiya having it 49-46. That's about right. I would give her 1 round. Maybe you give her the second round or something like that. But maybe the 4th or something. But in general, no. I thought it was easy to find 3 rounds. I would say it was easy to find 3 rounds for Grasso.